Welcome. Good to see everyone. It's Career Happy Hour. Every Friday, 3 o'clock Pacific time, we get together in this small community and we're here to support each other for sure. So if you're here, I would like you to let me know if you can see, hear, and receive what I'm broadcasting today. By the way, if you would please put your LinkedIn profile in the chat, whether you're joining us by Periscope, Facebook, YouTube, or of course here on LinkedIn. We'd like to see that you're a member of this community, and by putting your LinkedIn profile in the chat, you allow members of this community actually connect with you and to interact with you. We're trying to, in some way, lubricate the networking process. It's hard enough sometimes with a platform like LinkedIn to create a micro community where we can all benefit. And I'm here as a service to you. It's happy hour, 3 o'clock Pacific time. Who am I? I'm Andrew Beach. I'm a teacher of self-education. I help professionals like you communicate your value to find great opportunities faster. That's through a pragmatic process of branding, personal branding, planning, and effective networking. If that's something you're interested in, of course, you can send me direct messages or go to my LinkedIn page and schedule time in my calendar to chat about that on an intimate level to see how we can meet your needs. But that's not my purpose here today. My purpose here today is to answer your questions. Meaning, if you have a question about how to use LinkedIn, about how to network, how to find opportunities, interviewing, market planning, reaching out to people, and sometimes there's a burning question in your mind and you would like to have an answer. And if that's related to your career, getting advancements, that's fine. You can do it in the chat, in which case that will be public. But let's see, for some reason, the chat isn't showing up here. Let me sure I've got the chat overlay turned on properly. Let's turn it back on, see if the bots are working. Well, maybe I'll put something here in the chat and see if it works. So if you could put something in the chat, please let me know that you're joining. I'd appreciate that. Looks like we have a handful of people now. I recognize that some people. Let's make sure we're getting some sort of transpondence between all of these destinations, and see if we can get some chats to come in here. Okay, well, let's try this. Hello. There we go. Something's now initiated. Welcome. Nothing burning at the moment. That's good, because then you'd have to put out a fire. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Bonjour, mes amis in Montreal. Let's see. Oh, for some reason, the chat is not showing up in the chat on the screen. So I will read only. Yeah, it's not reading anything. I'm going to turn off the chat overlay in that case, and we'll just go solo. Now, I recognize that some of you may be joining, and here's the thing. You're maybe wanting to keep it confidential. I get it. There is a link, by the way, in the description, regardless of the platform you're joining, and you can come into the green room. You can come into the green room, click that link, and you can put a question in there. You can type in your name as anonymous or whatever. That's fine. Or if you want to get hands-on, support and you want to have a more, how would you say, higher level of conversation rather than just through the chat, you can come on live. You can ask me any question that you're facing or challenge that you're having, and I'm happy to answer. I was reminded of something this week. That activity generates results. Activity generates results. Activity generates results. Now, the challenge that a lot of us have when we're going through maybe career transition or trying to find a promotion is that we don't feel like we're doing the right activities. And for some reason, we feel also that those activities we're doing may not actually lead to the outcome we desire, which is job, right? Some of us are looking for a job, but the activities we're doing are not synonymous with that. And I was reminded this week because I was doing some outreach to various people on LinkedIn, and I actually got somebody to respond. And they said yes. And I looked at all the people I reached out to, and there was a conversion rate, right? So there's, how would you say it? An outreach generates a conversion, which is activity breeds a result. And the conversion I want is a conversation. A conversation can take many different types of forms, can it? I mean, it could be an interview. It could be just a network meeting. It could be a 5-minute coffee chat on Zoom. I mean, it doesn't have to be something extravagant, because the art of building relationships doesn't happen in one touch. It has to be multiple touches. In order to build relationship, we need to invest time, energy, effort. In every relationship that I have of trust, I can point to years of investment. Now, I'm not suspecting that it's going to take years of investment in a relationship to get a position, but it certainly could make the process easier the more trusting relationships that you have. That's what I've learned this week, is that I reached out to a bunch of people cold on LinkedIn, and the conversion, roughly speaking, 1 out of 25. Conversion from outreach to a conversation, 1 out of 25. However, I reached out to just a handful, maybe 5 people I already knew, where I had the trust relationship, and asked, let them know the situation, a heads up that, there's certain things I'm looking for. And what happened was I was led to a conversation by reaching out to 5 people. So 5 people already in my network. So it's a 1 to 5, 5 outreaches, 1 conversation. Which one do you think for me, now your mileage might vary, which one for me do you think is generating better results? And that's starting with the people I know, where I have trust relationship, doesn't have to be all trusting, is going to lead to better results for me because I'm getting a 1 out of 5. So where do you think I should invest? Well, 1 out of 5, 20% of my time. 20% of my time should be talking to people I already know that is generating trust from a generated trust relationship is leading to those conversations. The other time, 1 out of 25, which isn't very good. What is that? 4%? So it'd be 4 out of 100, 4% of my time, cold outreach on LinkedIn. By tracking our numbers, I think it's funny. Many of us are opposed, maybe even averse to tracking numbers because we don't want to know the truth. And that's the hard thing. I was never really good, honestly, at tracking numbers, but I mean, I could use my intuition and know. I think all of us could at least, at the minimum, use our intuition and know which of these are getting us the best results. And that's conversations. The more conversations we have, the more opportunity we generate. And the more opportunity you generate, the higher probability we will be getting offers. And this is something that I think a lot of us maybe miss, is that it's the conversations. It's not always the interview. In fact, what do they call a network meeting other than an informational interview? So we can look at it from both of those perspectives, that we are in a position to generate conversations, whether there's an open position or not, whether there's someone considering you or you not. What might happen is you reach out to somebody about a position, and it's not, how would you say it? It's not a fit, and we know it's not a fit, but instead they actually refer you to somebody in their network that is a fit. Whether that's inside the company, outside the company, or their circle of influence is much different than yours. And if you've had a good interaction with them and made a positive impression, they are likely going to go not the extra mile, but they'll certainly put their endorsement or their testimonial behind you. They'll put their interaction with you, if it had an impact, is going to lead to more opportunity. And that's what happened to me this week. One of those led to 2 tangible opportunities, and the other one led to a promise for introduction. And so that was, my confidence level on some of these introductions is not very high, and it requires a lot of follow-up. So that's the other side of this coin, is once you generate the conversation and have it, you have to identify a follow-up that makes sense. The follow-ups are often where these requests for interviewing and these requests to apply through maybe an internal channel, through that internal channel that's not posted publicly. I find that compelling, is that there may be a pipeline of requisitions or jobs to be posted that just haven't been posted yet. And wouldn't it be great to be at the front end of that line rather than the back end or somewhere in the middle, muddled middle? I sure would like to be at the front of the line. I don't know about you, but I love being at the front of the line. Good. Yeah. Well, I mean, thanks, James. There are a lot of places around town that are having, I would say, challenges with the fire conditions. Absolutely. It's something that really hit us hard. I think a little over a year ago, I think it was. It wasn't last year. It might have been the year before. But if you have any questions, go ahead and put those in the chat, and I'm happy to answer. Okay, so here's a question from James. Thank you for that. I'm not actually seeing any chats come through, so for whatever reason, it's not working on my end. But this is from LinkedIn, and James says, Andrew, what is the typical number of weeks or months to find a job? I realize it can depend on economic climate, job type, and numerous other things. This is a great question, and it's one that I actually get often. And that is, hey, how long is this going to take? And the answer is, it depends. It depends on so many different factors that you can't even state a timeline. What can we point to, though, and say that this will generate better results than we get from just a timeline, right? Saying that on average timeline. And, well, that is the number of people you meet and talk to. So if I was to say to you that in order to be placed in 11 weeks, what was that? The top quartile. Yeah, the data I saw, the top quartile. That's my alarm system. Sorry, guys. But the top quartile of job seekers meets 2.7 hiring managers per week. 2.7 hiring managers per week generally translates into placement in 11 weeks. So what can we learn from that? Well, that if we can work toward a KPI, a key performance indicator that actually has been proven to generate job offers, then that's what I'm going to depend on. I'm going to depend on my networking to get me to hiring managers to have those conversations. And I've had 2 of those this week. From what? Well, it was a total of 30 outreaches, 2 conversations. So I met 2 hiring managers this week. And that means that I'm in a position now to expand on that. And so the challenge is maintaining that cadence, that process. And how can I maintain that process? So I would encourage you to and advocate for you to change your mindset about the activities or timeline how long this should take. It's the wrong metric. Timeline is not dependent upon what it is you're trying to accomplish. It's in terms of finding a job. Timeline is not relevant. What is relevant is your activities. You can't control time. You can control your activities. Time is going to pass whether you're participating in applications or networking or anything else. That means that you don't control the time. You do control your activities. And if my activities right now are, 90% online, making applications and optimizing my resume for an ATS, and I'm putting out, let's say, 50 applications a week, and I'm not getting any interviews, then I know my conversion rate on that activity, 0 out of 50. So I go another week, I do another 50 applications, and lo and behold, I get one conversion, 1 out of 100. That would be my conversion rate. So you have to track your numbers to know what works for you and what doesn't. Right? What doesn't? Okay. Good. Looks like we have another question here from Courtney. Thank you, Courtney. Welcome. Good to have you. In your opinion, what are the emerging industries and skill sets that will be important in the next 3 to 5 years? Industries and skill sets I would look as 2 different things. Industries in my mind, the industries that I think are going to be critical in the next 3 to 5 years, if I had a crystal ball, I couldn't tell you, right? Because there's so many moving parts right now. A global pandemic could scuttle a whole industry. Look at restaurants, look at hospitality. So, I mean, there's so many factors that play into that. It's astounding. But I still believe that the place that needs the most disruption, and you can probably hear this from people like, who was it? I can't remember his name. Anyway, he was the New York University professor of marketing, anyway, I could remember his name, but I've blocked it out of my mind. But one of the things that he's talking about is higher education. One of the industries that's ripe for disruption is higher education. It's way too expensive to deliver some of these educational programs, and I could see that learning as an industry is going to need to go through transformation, especially higher ed. And you're seeing that now with a lot of companies investing in their own learning programs, their learning management systems. And of course, it's the reason why LinkedIn Learning is so successful. Why? Because they're not teaching everything you need to know in higher ed, and they're charging too much money for it. So that would just be one that I can think of. I'm sure there's others. And skill sets. Along with that, the capacity to learn, I think, will be universally critical to anyone's success moving forward. The capacity to learn a new skill, the capacity to absorb and implement and execute new learnings is a critical skill. One that's in short supply and in high demand right now as well is communications. Professional, persuasive, confident communications are skill sets that will serve you well regardless of your capacity. I think that's universally true across the board in any industry, is having a capacity to communicate. Communications, learning, what else? I think that the last year has taught a lot of people something, and that is the capacity to be versatile, agile. I don't like to use the word flexible because that to me connotates something just shy of sacrificing your values. So, being able to communicate confidently and that sort of thing, and being able to learn is really important. So let's see. Could you repeat the numbers again, please? 2.7 interviews per week for, the top quartile, the top 25% of job seekers. They're broken into 4 sections. It's called a quartile instead of a tertile. A tertile would be a third, right? But the top quartile, top 25%, meaning the ones that are placed the fastest, they meet 2.7 hiring managers per week. That means some weeks you're going to have 2, other weeks you'll have 3. If you shoot for 3 and you miss, at least you're on pace to maintain 3. So that is 3 per week. Could we do 3 hiring manager conversations per week? That's not an interview always. It could be, and that would count as a conversation, but it's a conversation of strategic significance in some way with the hiring manager. Doesn't have to be an interview. The 2 I had yesterday, they were just network meetings. They were not technically interviews. Good. So top quartile, 2.7 hiring managers per week. On average, they're placed in 11 weeks. So question for you then, James. Do you want to be placed in 11 weeks? Would it be okay if you got placed in 11 weeks? And if I had a plan to get you there, would you want to use it? Probably. Now the question is, based on what I've said, would you make a commitment to meet 3 hiring managers per week and having a conversation? Thank you, Ami. Putting your LinkedIn profile in the chat signifies, by the way, to everyone here that you are open to someone reaching out to you, and you will say yes when they do to a network conversation. So please put your LinkedIn profile in the chat if you're comfortable doing so. Not everybody is. I get that. And so many of us, thank you for that. The questions, put those in the chat. I am happy to answer. And oh, by the way, if you could please just take a second and share this out with your networks. There's a little share button down below. I think it's somewhere like right here, right about there, maybe. It says share. It's right next to the thumbs up button. And so if you could click that and share it out to your networks, that would be wonderful. I want to get more people to come to this session. Right now there's 10, and I'm sure there's a lot of silent lurkers, people just taking in the information. But if you could, share it out, click the share button down there, or at least maybe send a private message to someone you think would find value in this Friday session, I'd really appreciate that. So that brings us to the news. If there's no questions, I'll hop to the LinkedIn news and see what we can discern is top of mind for a lot of people. Right now, for me, top of mind is today, at least in our geography, last day of school. That means that people are going to be taking vacations. It means potentially that many people will not be available for the next week or two because they will be on their vacations because their kids are out of school. They go on vacations. So I believe that that's happening. Is the link the same every week? I have a group I want to share with. Yes. If they just go to my profile page, the nice thing about LinkedIn, just send them my profile page link and it'll be in the background image. So if you go to my profile right now, what you will see is in the background, linkedin.com/in/branding dynamo. Okay, I'll put my link in the chat as well. So if you would just click on that link, and I think what you'll see when you go there is in the background image, you'll see the video playing in the background image. So just send them my profile link. And yes, it's the same time every week, 3 o'clock Pacific time. And there is a private chat here. So if you want to come in to the private chat and you want to maintain your confidentiality or anonymity, you can do that. That is in the description. You can click the link in the description. It's very easy to see that. You can come in if you want to get coaching. That's great. If you want to remain anonymous, just type in the chat box, I want to remain anonymous, but here's my question. And then I can answer the question in a more general fashion without calling out your name. Let's see. James has a question. Thank you, James. Andrew, the way your virtual screen is set up is there's almost no lag on the edges of your face. Any tips? Did you do anything special to get this nice effect? Yes, it's called a green screen. So if you have a green screen, I mean, James, here's the thing. I do this for a living. And so for me, this is a setup. I have a green screen. I have studio lighting. I've got the HD webcam. I've got a professional microphone, right? I'm not doing this as practice. I'm doing this as a profession. And the background image, I don't even know where it is. Someone, I think, once told me it might be Hong Kong, but I mean, I've got others that I could share with you. And the technology I'm using actually is called OBS, Open Broadcast Software. It's free, which I like. I like free. Free is for me, and I've done free for a long time. And the nice thing about learning free is you get to learn what's good, what's bad, and paying for things sometimes is worth the investment. In this case, OBS is an exceptional, in my opinion, exceptional piece of software. And I haven't yet scratched the surface of this open source program. But I use what's called a virtual camera. I think that's what it's called, isn't it? It's called virtual camera. And so what it does is it actually creates a virtual camera on my PC. And that virtual camera is then something I can feed into something like Restream, which is the system that I do all the broadcasting on. But yeah, I mean, if you want more information on my setup, that's fine. You can contact me offline. It's simply a green screen, good lighting. The challenge with a lot of green screens, which is funny, is a lot of time there's spillover from the back of the green screen. So you have to make sure that the light behind the green screen is really dark so that you're flashing light on the front of it so that there's high contrast. But I mean, if I move my hand fast enough, you'll see it can't keep up. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but it's typically because you're superimposing a green screen. If I was broadcasting it, 4K in 4K, I may not have that issue, but I'm not. I think I'm broadcasting in 720 just to make it easier on me and easier on you. Good. Welcome, Linda. I'm open to connect and have networking conversations. Yes, I like it. Linda in the house. Good for you. Excellent. Looks like we're up to 13 folks. So let's jump right into the news and let's see what's on top of LinkedIn's minds. Yeah, I've been seeing this a lot. I'm in Portland, Oregon, and I've been seeing a lot of job postings from Nike, and it has this on it, open to remote work except for Colorado. And I'm really kind of curious why that is. So let's see why, because I think LinkedIn News will tell us right now. So I'll share my screen if that's all right with y'all, and we'll go through the news. Let me get rid of that. There we go. Let me also get rid of the participant name. There we go. That's much better. Okay, here we are. A law requiring companies to post pay ranges for jobs in Colorado, including remote work, has put the state in their sights. Dozens of employers are including disclaimers in postings for remote jobs that effectively say residents of the state won't be considered. The corporate backlash against the law aimed at reducing gender gaps and opacity around pay has spurred one resident to build a site, coloradoexcluded.com, that tracks such efforts by employers. If you're a remote worker or digital nomad, consider joining the group Remote Workers on LinkedIn by clicking here. So I find this interesting. So this is where, when we put laws into effect, we don't understand the downstream consequences of doing that. I understand why they'd want to do it, and I think it's noble in what they're pursuing. But by doing that, you're forcing a company to divulge what might be their competitive advantage, right? So they don't want to be seen as either paying over or under the market for what that position calls for. And so if a competitor can see what they're paying for a certain level of person, now you're creating wage war. And that, for a lot of organizations, doesn't work out well. Now, does it mean that Coloradans are out in the cold? It just means that if you work there, you won't be able to get remote work opportunities. So that's a challenge. So if you're, say, living in Colorado and you're trying to get a job in remote that's with Nike here in Portland, they're excluding residents of Colorado. So what does that mean, though? Does that mean you have to divulge your residency in Colorado? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, I don't know how you would get around that. You'd probably have to write the law, but I think what that means is companies are not going to be advertising their jobs in Colorado, nor are they going to be advocating that Coloradans apply for jobs that are at their company. So, and I find it also interesting that someone would actually go to the trouble of creating a website that actually is tracking these companies. Anyway, it's up to the company, in my opinion, to do what they want to be. A new way to sign off your, what is that? Email. Yeah, stop saying sorry so much. US-Canada travel limits. Is anybody experiencing that? I think there's been some Canadians here on the stream. Is anybody experiencing trouble getting to and from Canada? Let's see. Job search tips from a recruiter. Here we go. Let's check. Oh, I didn't mean to click that one. I wanted the other one. Let's go back here, make it full screen, make it easier to read. Job search tips from a recruiter. Now, I personally have some opinions about recruiters, and, some are good, some are bad, but just like any profession, there's always the top 1% that are exceptionally good. And I think all of us need to know who those people are. And the only way to find them sometimes is through networking or experience. And once you find a good recruiter, you want to make them part of your network for sure. And not just a connection on LinkedIn, a conversation 2, 3, 4 times a year. Okay. Even if you're working. So here we go. Job seekers are often in the dark when it comes to what happens to their resumes and applications once they're submitted to open positions. That is not true. That is absolutely not true. You have done data entry and you are in a database. That's exactly what happens to your application. You're really good. If you're doing applications, no, it just goes into a database. You've done data entry. You're not in the dark. It's in their database. You don't have visibility to anything else. So I wouldn't assume that there is anything else to discern from putting your application in a database. Now, that said, is an application resume the end? No, it's the beginning. Meaning, hey, I need to find someone else on LinkedIn. I need to see if there's anybody currently in my network working there that can introduce me to the right people. I'm going to knock on every door into that company until it opens and I get through and I at least have an opportunity to get an interview. Okay. The application resume is not the beginning, or it's not the end. It's the beginning. Okay. Tehal Wagadia, who is a recruiter and a 2020 LinkedIn top voice in job search and careers, shined a light on some of what happens behind the scenes on most recent Get Hired Live. That's great. So you could go look at that and take a peek. She said that job seekers should know. Here we go. Not to worry about applicant tracking systems. I disagree. I would worry that this applicant tracking system is actually working for the company and realize that it's not working for me. And if it's not working for me, it may not be working for the company. And therefore, it's a bad experience for everyone. And sometimes you wonder, why do they even have them? Well, because they used to, in the olden days, take cover letter resumes by mail or by fax machine or by email, and they printed them out and they put them in a folder. These systems are just databases. So it's not that you shouldn't worry about the applicant tracking systems. You should do your best to optimize your resume for the position and for the ATS, but you shouldn't invest too much time in that process. Too much time to me would be 2 hours. If you did 15, 20, 30 minutes, update your resume, customize it for the job, et cetera, and then put it in there, that's fine. Cover letter, et cetera. Not to apply, just to apply. Meet 70 to 80% of the qualifications. That I would also disagree with, because much of the research that I've seen is that the conversion to interview is market dependent. Let's say we were in a market pre-pandemic where the market was really tight and the capability of finding qualified talent was really hard. That means just about everybody who applied got an interview, doesn't it? Because the talent pool was smaller. So, hey, if the market is good in your marketplace, the type of work you're looking for, in the geography that you're in, then yes, applying to apply actually does work because the market forces are in your favor. However, today, or even in the past, you could probably remember when we were pretty close to 9 or 10% unemployment. Guess what? There's an abundance of candidates and not very many job opportunities. What does that mean? The marketplace is not working to our benefit. In either case, what hasn't changed? What hasn't changed is the universal truth that networking is the number one way to find work, period, ever. Even pre-internet, people hire those they know, like, trust. Know, like, trust comes from relationship. Relationship comes from taking time to reach out to and connect with and have conversation with people you know and people you have yet to know but probably should. Not to try bypassing recruiters. This is the one that makes me laugh out loud. Why? Because you're not bypassing the recruiter. You're helping the recruiter by having a relationship with the hiring team and having the possibility to filter without being filtered in a proactive, positive way actually helps the recruiter. And not that you're trying to bypass the recruiter, but if you're interacting with a recruiter and they're having you in for an interview, that's different, right? But if the recruiter is not corresponding with you, is not talking to you, you're getting no response from anybody, you may not even know who the recruiter is, then what else are you to do? What else are you to do? You are to find somebody on LinkedIn or through any other source you can find. Facebook is valid. YouTube is valid. Twitter is valid. There's tons of valid social networks. And you probably already have a cell phone full of people you know. Go to the people you know, right? You're not bypassing a recruiter. You're working in your interest. And who is the recruiter working for? Is the recruiter working for you? I don't think so. You're not paying their bills, right? You're not putting money on their table. Okay. So the idea here is, okay, I recognize that I have power, and my power is I'm going to do what's within my locus of control to get to an interview, period. Sorry, I get worked up on these things. Oh, wow. A 4-day work week makes a 5-hour work day. 20 hours a week? Are you for real? This can't be real. Let's see. If you pulled a large portion of the working populace, whether they preferred an 8-hour workday or a 5-hour workday, we're confident we would predict the results. Yeah, that's an easy choice. But the thing is, people who say they work 8 hours actually don't work 8 hours. But what if we told you a 5-hour workday had some benefits, including productivity? I would say you're crazy, because most people who say they work 8 actually work 5, and those who say 5 probably work 3. 5-hour workdays may be a better option for 4-day work week. The time constraint of the shorter workday forces people to think creatively on how to get jobs done with more efficiency. No, it just makes them lazier. So anyway, so the challenge with looking at some of these studies, in my opinion, is that you're making presuppositions, or you're not testing a valid hypothesis. And in any event, I don't know. I'll have to go read that article and see if it's as off as I think it is. So let's see what else is here. 4-day work week, advice to younger self. Stop saying sorry so much. Hey, I'm an advocate of positive communications that are productive and confidence building. Here's the thing. I only think you should say sorry when you really messed up. Okay. It's not something that you should use as a nervous tick. Oh, sorry for this. Sorry for that. Sorry, I'm late. Sorry, I missed a thing. So, so don't use it as a regular part of your vernacular, but it is certainly something that is required when you did something wrong, bad, or in some way damaged another. So I do think there's time and a place for this. We need to stop over-apologizing, argues a recent opinion piece on Thrive Global. Deloitte's chief well-being officer says that too many apologies weakens the sentiment. I agree. And it also makes us appear less confident. Absolutely. So apologize. Sorry. It's my mistake, right? Admitting things is one thing, but being trying to cover up a deficiency or something with an apology, I think, doesn't it come across as the way you think it ought to. A few ways to stop apologizing. Ask ourselves, when is an apology really appropriate? That's good advice. Talk context rather than saying sorry for something beyond our control. And acknowledge our mistakes and explain how we'll do better. Yeah, that's all good. So the appropriate here, I'll sum this up. I'll sum this up in one sentence. Ask yourself, when is an apology really appropriate? And that's when I think you've actually diminished or in some way did something to harm another in any context. Good. A new way to sign off your email. We get emails at all times of the day, and many of us feel compelled to respond. I don't. A recent post by the vice president of AWS has suggested for emails that discourages the need to write back at any hour. See below. That's surprising to me, especially coming from someone at AWS, which quite honestly, my assumption, and maybe that's my assumption, is that people at AWS work all hours of the day. They do whatever it takes to get stuff done. And that sometimes means working 16 or more hours in a day to get something done. And you're looking at email and, it really, I have to admit, there are likely in many large organizations, micro communities, micro cultures, where this could potentially be a possibility, where someone is allowed to not respond to an email at any hour of the day or night in order to get the work done. So good. That's all I have for today. There weren't any other news articles here that I saw that were compelling enough to take advantage of sharing with you today. So let's see. I'll go back and check the chat here and see if there's any other questions. Let's see. Good. You do have OBS. Hey, hi, Teresa. Good to see you. What are the pros and cons of submitting a resume to a third-party job search site, Glassdoor, Indeed, and Monster? You're going to get outreach. By putting your stuff on those sites, you're giving away your private information to people who can reach out to you. Anybody who pays any of those sites can get access to your data. And what that means is you'll now start having people that want you to open an insurance agency. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just not for everybody. You'll get people reaching out to you, spamming you. There's a lot of, how would you say, things outside of your areas of interest. It's just not within your area of interest. So I don't believe that there's anything positive about putting your stuff on those sites. Now, the positive side of that is they're creating a community where people can find talent. Now, I don't believe that Glassdoor actually has an applicant system. Monster might. I do know Indeed does. So there are recruiters that use Indeed as an applicant tracking software, much like ZipRecruiter or some of the others. or even LinkedIn is an applicant tracking system. So part of the benefits of being on those sites is to be considered for opportunities. And I believe, much like any other site, they have some privacy settings where there's certain things that people can't see unless they ask your permission and so forth. Or you can keep your name anonymous. I'm not sure, but that's something I would consider. I've never been a fan of putting your stuff out on the internet without a purpose. And the purpose there is that we're afraid to network. So we're going to wait for the market to present us an opportunity. And one of the ways we can wait for the market to present us an opportunity is to put our stuff on those kind of sites. And then I'm going to get outreach, not for permanent placements, but for other maybe contract roles, right? I'll get outreach by recruiters that want me to be a staff augmentation for X dollars an hour without benefits. So, it's not optimal. I'll say that it's not optimal. James says, one problem I see is not sure if the system allows submitting a few different resume formats targeted at different job categories. I'm not sure what you mean. There's no way really to trick the systems, the applicant tracking systems. I know people have tried. They've tried to trick the systems or in some way keyword stuff their resume to try to get it through the process. But my advocacy is that you should make the application, don't invest a lot of time in it, and don't prioritize it over meeting a person ever. In my opinion, unless a hiring manager has told me, go apply for this role, here's a link, I'm going to invest my days, my time in meeting people and having conversations and trying to get in the door that way until I get to a person that has what I have to offer and ask me to apply to a job that has just been posted, is about to be posted, or is in their internal system but not publicly advertised. Your opinion on cover letter, do you feel it gets looked at in this area of job search? Yes, it does. But not by everybody. Not by everybody. I was always an advocate of doing things for people that appreciate it. Doing things for the people that appreciate it. And the challenge is when you're sending an application resume, you don't know who's going to read it and whether or not they're going to appreciate it. So guess what? We're going to write it for everybody, for every application where it's possible. Why? Because you never know who's going to appreciate it and who isn't. And so it's not written there for the people who don't appreciate it and will never read it. It's there for the ones who will and do appreciate that. It's the same with thank you notes, right? Handwritten thank you notes are not things that are appreciated by all people. I appreciate getting them, and I know that it sets other people apart from me if that's done. So yes, cover letters, my opinion is for every application I make, I should have one. Absolutely. Let's see. Are there any no-cost or low-cost networking organizations, groups, or apps you would recommend? That's funny. You're on the no-cost networking groups, organizations platform that I recommend, and that is networking through LinkedIn. How would I find networking organizations? I would do a search for events on the LinkedIn page. And so if I was in, let's say, organizational, let's see, let me see. I want to take a peek at your profile here. I won't call out your name. You're in Phoenix. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I knew where you were. Organizational development. Here, I will help you out. I will share my screen. Okay, so I just did a search on LinkedIn for organizational development. You can see that up here in the search box, right? Organizational development. And now I get a number of filters. I'm going to come over here to events. And I see I get 160 results for OD. Okay, let's see what filters I get. I don't get any filters. That doesn't help me. I'm just going to put Arizona. How about that? And click enter. And so now there's no events in Arizona. So let's try Southwest. Hopefully that's right. Southwest. Okay, now I'm not seeing any. Okay, so now I'm in a position where I just have to go through all 160 events to see what matches me. One attendee. So I can see here, not many attendees, and this is posted like every day in October and November. So I wish there was a way to go through this and be more pragmatic about it. But you can search these different things. and go to an event. You can also do this by groups, organizational development groups. In this case, I get 1900. Now I can put in Phoenix, right? Phoenix. If I could spell, do I know how to spell Phoenix? Hopefully I did that right. Phoenix, there we go. Leaders in OD, HR, 4 members. Here we go. APICS. That's interesting because I put in organizational development. It gives me APICS. Great, I'm going to attend anyway. So I could go to their chapter, and when I join their group, they have a separate events page, right? They'll have a separate events page here in the group, okay? So I think the challenge many of us face is we think there's some special, place that we can go to find these things, when in reality, what we need to do is just use the tools that are right in front of us, right at our disposal. And searching through LinkedIn to find groups, to find events, is really the way I would go if that's what you're looking for. Question here from, who is this from? Christina. Chris, good to see you. What do you think of the recent headlines about the Great Resignation wave? That is the expectation that many people may be quitting their jobs post-COVID. It's long overdue. Sorry, I hit the desk. It's long overdue. Why? Because people have stayed too long in jobs that don't fit them, period. End of discussion. They've just been too afraid and needed something like this, a pandemic, to get them out of, snap them out of a pattern. It's long overdue. And all of us ought to, and what we learned from this is all of us ought to be a little more deliberate and intentional in the types of opportunities we're looking at, and always keep our eyes and ears open, test the market on a regular basis. Test the market on the regular. What does that mean? That means you should apply to a couple jobs, even if you're working and happy. Apply to some jobs, go to some interviews, do some networking, go to a group event, interact with other employers, share best practices. Okay. And so I don't know, it's long overdue. And so the challenge isn't for the candidate, the challenge is for the company. And the company, these talent teams need to be getting really good at wooing people over and changing up how they do things, and not just demanding more and more from people and not offering something in return. I think it's really changed the balance of power. So anyway, you can also check Meetup or Eventbrite for events in your area. Absolutely. I found quite personally, in Eventbrite and Meetup are good ones. But what I found is a lot of companies that didn't have a presence on Meetup or Eventbrite didn't go there. They already had a presence on LinkedIn, and for their purposes, this was a better platform for that. But yes, those are also resources where you can find that information. Good. I don't see any other questions here. I think it might be time to call it. Unless you have a question, a follow-up. I need a drink. No follow-ups, no questions. Not seeing any here. Just going back through, make sure I didn't miss any. Don't want to miss a question. Leave somebody out. That would not be good. Good. I think I got to the top there. It's not letting me go up any higher. Anyhow, wish I could see all the chats. Sorry, folks. I don't see all the chats. And they're not in my chat system here, so I can't see it. Let's see. Another question came in. Linda, have you observed folks attempting to join groups and or industry events, webinars, conferences, but not being accepted due to them having a Gmail? No, I haven't seen that. I have not seen that. Gmail account. Instead of a company-based email account, people in between employment accounts still want to participate. Yeah. I guess there probably are certain domains that are, how would you say, blacklisted? I don't know if I'd call it blacklisted, but gray listed. And so that does happen for industry events. They want to be dealing with principals, and that's part of their, their automated systems, whether that be HubSpot or maybe it's Adobe Experience Manager, I think. And so, yes, enjoy your weekend, Scott. Appreciate that. Is that these different systems are intended to generate leads, and they're not going to put a lead into their database because sometimes the number of records that they maintain there on the database are finite. And when they hit a different number, they get to pay more money. So just recognize they're not doing that for anything probably but financial reasons, and they set up those permissions that way. And it's unfortunate. The way to get around that sometimes is a volunteer, right? Is a volunteer for some of these programs, these projects. And if you're going to an industry event that's hosted by a, what would you call it? A company that's trying to find business, then that's different, right? If you're going to say a PMI event, Project Management Institute event, that's an association. They don't typically have those issues, those challenges. Good. And I would, hey, you know what? If you can't get in, just go to the next one. It's like a city bus. We shouldn't stop looking for opportunities to connect with people just because we get some resistance on an email registration page. So, and there's many ways to participate in these events. There's many ways to interact with people. These are just some of those. Now, not every group is for every person, and vice versa. Not every group will let you in. So there's thousands of groups. You want to be in the groups that are aligned with your values and in your areas of interest, and are equally willing to help you as you are to help them. Let's see. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Okay. Good. All right, folks. Thank you, Faithlin. Appreciate that. Good to see you. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you next Career Happy Hour. Be safe and have a nice weekend. Bye now.